can just add them in. Chloe, have you started recording? Yeah, cool. Okie dokie. So thank you for coming, everybody. So today's session is on the algorithm, analytics and ambitions, creating your social media strategy. So as I say, there's a lot to get through today. And I think although it might sound a little bit scary and a little bit intimidating, some of those words, actually, I do think this will be one of the most useful in sort of helping you to clarify exactly what you're doing with your social media platforms and why you have them and kind of what your strategy is moving forward. So today we're going to cover why have a social media strategy, what is your social media strategy, and we're going to work through that together through a few different exercises, so you'll hopefully get an outline of that. What do you want to achieve? How often will you be posting? What will you post? How will you gather the content? That kind of thing. Then we'll be looking at how to schedule posts and how to use social media analytics to learn what works and do more of it, and so that you can help build on your strategy and incorporate that as part of your strategy. So we're going to start with why have a social media strategy. So there are 5 reasons why we think it's really important to have a social media strategy. So we think it will help you organize your time more effectively and sort of speed the social media process up. A lot of you have probably just been given social media as an extra job on your to-do list that you maybe hadn't have thought about before, and it might feel like this big task that you're not really sure how often you're meant to be doing it, or when, or what kind of content you should be sharing. So having a strategy will just help it to feel a bit more manageable and to give you clarity about what you're doing. It will also be really useful document that you can share with other members of staff and subject leaders, so it's clear what you need from them and the buy-in that you need from them. And finally, it'll allow you to kind of refer back to it and track your progress moving forward. So that's really helpful. And you can see how much, how far you've come. So as I said, we're going to go through and have a go at this ourselves, each in your sort of each by yourself, go through some of these activities to pull your social media strategy together. And we're going to go right back to the start. So I want you to think about, what do you want to achieve with your social media? And I want you to write down 2 to 3 objectives for what you think you're kind of doing social media for. Do you want to be attracting more people to your school? Do you want to create better relationships with current parents? Do you want to make sure people are aware of all the good stuff happening at your school? So just take 2 minutes to write down 2 or 3 objectives for your social media. And then I'm just going to ask a couple of you to share them. So be prepared. Okay, I'm going to pick on you, Libby, seeing as you looked up at the wrong time. So what have you got written down?
Basically, to celebrate any good news, good things that are going on at the school, to show, that there are things going on that we want to celebrate with all our families, even if it's, and anybody actually who may be looking at our Twitter account, our Facebook account, creating those better relationships with parents so that they're aware of what's going on. They don't feel in the dark. I know we do our weekly newsletter, and again, that says things, but it doesn't perhaps do the odd little thing that we may have just been doing that day. And also to make us more visible within the community. So many good things going on here that we need not just parents to know about and carers, but the whole community, really. So that's the 3 main things, I think.
Yeah, some really good suggestions there. And what about you, Karen? What did you write down? Oh, you're just on mute, Karen, sorry. Oh, Sorry, Karen, I think you're on mute. There we go. Can hear you now.
Yeah, the same, showing parents what we do, good news, but also the key thing for my strategy is to attract staff. With the problems we have recruiting at the moment, if we can attract, especially for support staff jobs through parent body.
Perfect. Yeah, no, another great suggestion. So hopefully you've all got a couple of bits written down there. So now we're going to move on to how often will you post. So this is where the algorithms come in. Sorry about that. This is where, but I've tried to kind of keep it as simple as possible. So for those of you that might not know, social media algorithms are a way of sorting posts in a user's feed. And algorithms work to prioritize which content a user sees in their feed first. So if you think back in the old days of social media, everything was chronological and you saw everything that anybody posted. Now you get a highlight reel of the kind of main things that these social media networks think will be the most relevant to you. How often and when you post is just one of the areas that will affect the amount of engagement and attention your post will receive and how many people will be seeing them. So therefore, it's really important to try to work with the algorithm to get the most impact from your hard work. And that's what's really important here, because you're all investing time into these social media networks. So we need to make sure that you're getting something back from that, and you're achieving those things you mentioned earlier. So me and Chloe have gone through and done a bit of research into the different social media platforms you're using and looking into the algorithms for each of those and how that works in terms of what you're posting. So most studies agree that one post per day for Facebook is optimal, with a maximum of 2 posts per day. And HubSpot found actually that if you post more than once per day on Facebook, you likely to receive a 50% drop in engagement. And at a minimum, you should be posting to your Facebook page 3 times per week. So our general advice is about 3 to 5 times a week on Facebook. You are a school, you're not, a multi-million-pound business with a social media executive. So that's dedicated to do social media. So 3 times a week is more than enough. I know for some of you, this will feel quite reassuring, but for some of you, you might be thinking, God, how are we going to post everything if we can only post 5 to 7 times a week? So it's just a guide to kind of give you a bit of an insight into what they like. Twitter is slightly different. It's generally recommended to tweet 1 to 2 times per day, but no more than 3 to 5. So sort of similar. And any more than this could be seen as spamming the newsfeed and stop your post from being seen by as many people. Instagram, most studies found that the more you post, the more likely your post will be seen, which will increase your reach. However, again, it's still a maximum of 2 posts per day in order to not sort of drop off it in engagement. And LinkedIn finally is recommended to post around once per day. And again, avoid posting too frequently, particularly more than sort of every 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. So as I say, some of you will be thinking, great, we only really need to post 5 times a week. That's perfect. Some of you will be thinking, God, we've got so much we need to share, and we've got these operational updates and these things that we need to put out, and particularly like things like event reminders and stuff like that can take up a lot of those posts. So you could try using Facebook and Instagram stories if you use Instagram. So these are temporary posts on Facebook and Instagram that are shared with your audience in a separate area to your main feed. They sort of come up at the top. You can sort of see it in that screenshot there. And they only last for 24 hours. So they're perfect for things that you don't want to go onto your main feed, but you just want to ping up a reminder that you've got an event that night, for example. And it also allows you to get around the algorithm a bit, because this doesn't really contribute to those 2 posts a day or a post a day that we were talking about a minute ago. And just really helps to sort of highlight those urgent announcements. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. We're also going to talk in this section about scheduling. So scheduling is really important because it saves time and allows you to update social media hands-free. And with tools like Crowdfire is one that we'll show you in a minute that we use, which is free. You can update more than one platform at a time, and it's easier for lots of people to access that. So the benefit is, rather than going on Twitter and then going on to Facebook, you can do them both through the same piece of software that you just access via Google. And it just allows you to for example, say on like a Friday, you say, I'm going to sit down and schedule all my posts for next week. And then you do that each Friday, then that just means that you're not constantly going out, getting content, coming back, having to get it all up in, and that breaking it up in that way just tends to take a lot more time. Scheduling also allows you to see all the posts you've got coming up in like a calendar or stream format, so you can see that if you've said you're going to post 3 times a week, you can see that that's all booked in. Things like national days, you could even prepare a post in advance of that, for example. And finally, it allows you to post at the most optimal times, not just when you're working. So if you think about when you're most likely to be on social media, it's probably when you're first thing in the morning, when you're drinking your first coffee of the day, or maybe in the evening when you're watching I'm a Celebrity and you're just doing it in the background. That kind of time is probably when parents are going to be most active on social media, but obviously you're going to be at home chilling as well. So you can perhaps use Crowdfire or other tools like that to recommend time. They will recommend times when your audience is most active, and you can then make sure that you're posting at those times, as I say, to get the best kind of from all your hard work. So this is Crowdfire. This is what it looks like. You just type into any social enter Google or anything like that, Crowdfire, and it will come up. And you can sign up for a free account if you have up to 2, I think it's 2 or 3 platforms. So you can link your different platforms, and all you would do is you log in. You can see here that it has this kind of calendar format where you can see all the posts lined up. Obviously, this is an example from a very busy social media account. I wouldn't expect yours to look like this, but you can see how you would be able to see all the posts lined up. You would just click compose in this top right corner, and then here you can add you can see the little Athene owl there. You could add, there's a little plus sign next to that with a person. You could click on that to add another social network, so you can do the 2 posts at the same time and get them scheduled out. It'll also, you can schedule it for different times and different days. Another free option is TweetDeck, which if you just use Twitter, this is great. It allows you to schedule posts. You'll see there it says schedule tweet. If you click that instead of post a tweet now, it will allow you to schedule that for a time in the future and get that booked in as well. Here you can see there isn't anything scheduled on Athene's at the moment, but you can see the scheduled tab on the right hand side. That would show you where all your scheduled posts were, so you could see them what's coming up, and make sure you've got a variety. Also, there's Meta Business Suite. So if you use Facebook and Instagram, you can use Meta Business Suite to update Facebook and Instagram for free. So you just get to that by going to where you would normally create a post and clicking schedule your post from Planner or Meta Business Suite at the bottom here. That will take you to Meta Business Suite, where you can select, again, similarly, which platforms you want to post it to. You can draft your post very much as you normally would. It just looks like the layout's slightly different, and it will give you a preview as it normally would too. And then you can click schedule post down here. You can either click optimal times or this little drop down here to get this schedule post option. And you'll see here that this actually gives active times. So it says different times that your users are active. So you can select one of those to make sure that you're posting it as your users are the most active. So there's just a couple of options there. So I want you to take 2 or 3 minutes again now to think about how often you will be posting. So it's not necessarily what you do at the moment, it could be what you would like to be doing, but what do you feel would be manageable for your school in terms of how many posts you'd like to put out a week, and what would then work with the algorithm. So think about the social media platforms you use and how that impacts across both of those. Could you try scheduling, for example, perhaps would Instagram stories or Facebook stories work for you? So just have a think about some of those bits, jot down a couple of points, and then I'll just come to a couple of you for your thoughts. Okay, right. Let's go to Sarah. I know you joined a bit later. What have you written down for this one? Hopefully you saw most of this section, I think. If you haven't, just shout and I'll.
Hello, sorry, I was just getting my microphone back on.
Right.
So I think, so I did join late, but hopefully I'm up to speed. So yeah, Facebook, I'm kind of trying to do around 3 to 5 a week. And that is really challenging depending on what's going on in school. And Twitter, I kind of do at the moment the same. So whatever I'm posting on Facebook, I put on Twitter. It would be good to do a bit more, but that's just the juggling nature of where we are. So I probably don't do enough for the algorithm of Twitter, if I'm honest. I don't kind of feel like I'm joining conversations and engaging as much as the platform would want you to. I just don't. I've never really got on with Twitter on the personal level, and I just don't have the time. So I don't feel that I'm probably using that as best as I could. And I think it's a real challenge because on Facebook, for example, some weeks, yesterday I posted twice on Facebook and I wouldn't normally do that. And one of the posts didn't get engagement, and it's probably because it was an overfill. But that's because a member of staff wanted to put something out. So I'd already posted something that I wanted to say, and then I was asked to do something else. And I think that's the challenge a little bit sometimes when you're working in a school, that we want to get a message out to parents. But actually, if I've already put something out, it's that overkill and how to make that work.
Yeah, and it's never going to be a perfect science. And obviously there will be urgent things that happen. Say there's, a student's going to be late back from a bus trip and you've already posted something that day, you still need to post that. So but it's just about having that awareness that doing that will impact engagement, and weighing up whether it's worth it depending on what the situation is, and trying to use things like stories, as we mentioned, if it's possible. Actually, you say about Twitter, I think you're right. Probably the interaction side of it maybe is missing, but actually the amount you're posting is probably about right for Twitter. So don't be too hard on yourself, and we are fully aware that this is why we've gone into the kind of how often will you post part of the algorithm rather than all the other side of it, which there is obviously a full science behind. But
and I don't quite get that,
but great. Okay. Do you schedule your posts at all, or do you just post them sort of as and when?
I kind of typically post as and when. I have scheduled before, if I know things are coming up, but it's the nature of the job sometimes is you don't know what bits you're going to get and what you can post because you've got to check the permissions. So I think that's the real challenge is it would be great to kind of do it on a Friday afternoon and, your week set for the next week, but I don't feel like I have control of the narrative at the moment to be able to do that. But that is something that would be good to work towards. It's just getting the information from the staff.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, this might not necessarily apply to you, but one of the things that quite often happens is you feel like you get sent something and you have to post it straight away for it to still feel relevant. But actually, I don't think the majority of parents mind too much if stuff comes up maybe a day or two after it's happened. It kind of depends. Obviously, if it's something like children in need, it makes sense to get it out on the day if you can, because it ties into a national day. But if it's, you know, an activity that's taking place in school, it doesn't necessarily have to go out on that day. So you could gather stuff for the week and then schedule it for the following week, for example. But it just depends, and it's just different ways of working and trying out what works for you so that it can work as well as it can.
I mean, it's definitely very useful using the scheduling thing, especially if you're going on holiday or half terms and things like that. It is something that I have used before, and it is an easy way of doing it, because then, you know, you've done some marketing without having to log in every day.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Leslie, what did you put down?
I think at the moment we don't engage with social media as much as we probably should, and I think that's all to do with time and being busy, and so I think scheduling would work for us, and so I think that's something I definitely want to look at. I tend to post maybe 2 or 3 things in one day and then have nothing for days after that. And so I definitely need to look at scheduling and seeing how I can make that work better for us.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds great. That's definitely a workaround, because you've clearly got those bits there. It's just scheduling them out so they don't all go out at once. But obviously, when you've got time to do it, you've got a small window of time. You just want to bung it all on there. But it's just about you can do that. Just schedule it out so that it goes out gradually and not all at once. So yeah, thank you. Great. So we'll move on to the next section, which is around what are you going to post? What would you like to be posting? So we always suggest starting by setting your golden rules. Our golden rules at Athene that we recommend to schools, you don't have to stick to these by any means, but they are: number 1, to post that your both posts try to demonstrate one of your values. So for example, if your values are courage, compassion, creativity, trying to find different ways to show that through the social media, so that you're it really feels like it's showing off your school. Number 2, posts no longer than 100 words in length, so that you're trying to keep it short and keep it more image focused. And then again, all posts are accompanied by an image. We've talked about that lots of times before. Number 4, posts have a chatty sort of informal tone. And number 5, all posts share a positive message and should not be operational unless the information is essential. Now, I know a lot of you will be thinking that's not going to happen, and that's fine, but I think that's the aspiration that we're working towards. Obviously, there will be things that come up that you need to post, but generally trying to keep it, rather than don't forget to bring your PE kit this week, don't forget to do this, rather than those little moans or those little kind of reminders, trying to keep that stuff to other parent contact methods. So there are our kind of 5 golden rules. Yours might be slightly different to that, so we'll come back to that. But I want you to have a think about how yours might be the same or differ to that. We also recommend specifying the types of content you might like to post, because there's probably key themes to the kind of things that you usually post. So we tend to recommend 3 different types, which is a curriculum post, which is sort of your insights into the classroom. You know, here's year 3, drawing some posters about the environment, you know, those kind of activities in the classroom. You've got your extracurricular posts, which are showing off things outside of the traditional classroom environment. So things like trips, but also things like clubs and extra music lessons, that kind of thing, all those different things. And then student staff success posts. So celebrating your people. So highlighting a particular student that's gone above and beyond. Perhaps if you do things like stars of the week or spotlight of success type things, then or sending postcards home, that kind of thing, you can then translate that. So things, preferably things that are already happening or people that you've already identified, transferring that onto it, but also not forgetting about your staff. You know, if a member of your staff has done a run or a marathon or something, or gone on to achieve something outside of work that they're happy to share, that's another great post and tends to get really good engagement and really build that sense of community. Undoubtedly, there will be other things that you might add to this, like recruitment posts, for example, or yeah, any number of things that you might add to that. But they're kind of our 3 recommended ones. Obviously, we talked a little bit about time and about how we gather this, and a lot of you don't do the social media on your own, but if you are trying to do it on your own, it's really difficult, and you definitely need the buy-in and support of your colleagues. And it's what we talked about earlier in terms of having this strategy should help them to understand why you need help from them. But there are a couple of different things we've seen at different schools that have worked really well, and could potentially work for you. So curriculum schedules, so almost literally getting a spreadsheet, writing down all of the subjects that you have in your school, and then next to that, setting them each a week where they need to let you know about something for social media. This then just gives you that focus, I suppose, to be like, maths need to send us something on this week. It lets maths know that they need to be preparing something. It also means that you're only chasing a group of certain amount of people rather than the whole school for content. It also means that people know that they only need to send one thing per half term, for example, to then be able to filter through to the social media. It wouldn't necessarily work perfectly, but it just gives you that guidance. Class year group schedule can be the same. So again, it's about trying to get that variety, making sure that you're covering all your year groups, and that you're getting them all, that all know when they need to be sending you things, and you're getting that balance. Similarly, an extracurricular list. So writing down, getting maybe a couple of members of staff together and writing down a list of all the extracurricular activities that are going on in your school. And then almost when you haven't got a post, thinking, right, well, we haven't done a post yet on Science Club, so I'm going to go to Science Club and get a picture, or get them to send me a picture of that. And then you can almost tick them off. So it just helps to feed into ideas if you haven't got them already scheduled out. Staff room whiteboards or Teams channels can be really useful. So if you've got an area where all staff come together, or a Teams channel where all staff come together, putting up a whiteboard and asking them to just jot down social media ideas. And even if you just jot down a couple just to get them started, but if they can just write down a few words about what's happening and the time or date or whenever, that can be a really useful way to quickly gather some content. Also making use of networks that you already have in school. So things like your subject leaders, your year group leaders, your key stage leaders, getting them excited about sharing the work that they're doing, and then encouraging them to then have it as part of their responsibility to send you something each half term or each term. And then they then have that responsibility is then slightly with them as well, and you can then go back to them as another, as I say, as a group to chase, as opposed to the whole kind of school and the whole staff body. And then finally, making use of the Anglian Learning All Schools media diary. So you should hopefully have access to this, and if not, Lewis can probably share that with you if you get in touch with him. But this is a really useful resource in terms of having all the sort of national days and things that are coming up, but also allowing you to put what you've got coming up on there, so that the trust can use that as part of their communications. But also you might get inspiration from each other and different ideas, and it will also help you to track how your what kind of things you've got coming up and what you've been sharing. Is there any more to say on that, Lewis, Sarah, before I move on that All Schools diary? Is that okay? Yeah.
Sorry, just very quickly. Yeah, no, that's fine. Just to say, obviously, this is also really useful for all communication. So by going into this, I know we're focusing on social media, but actually, by having these kind of schedules, lists, etc., making sure you're covering everything, you could consider what you're putting into newsletters, websites, press releases, etc., as well. So there is benefit to doing this, and it's not. You don't purely need to use it just for social media.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Sarah. So I want you to, there was a lot there, and I know I'm whizzing through this. I'm just trying to make sure we get through everything in the time. But what would you like to be posting? How would you like to be gathering that content? Is there anything I've said there that could actually be useful for you? What do you think at the moment is working really well for your school? What types of posts are doing really well? How could you get other people to help you more? Are there any groups that you haven't yet accessed that you could be accessing? Could any of those kind of schedule structures kind of help you moving forward? So again, just going to give you a couple of minutes to think about that, and then I'll have a chat with some of you. Okie dokie. So can we go to Caroline? Is it Caroline?
Yep, me. Yep. So I was thinking about the scheduling a bit more. So we do something on half-termly that called the Leadership Work Plan, where loads of different diary dates and stuff goes into a document, and we do it. I do it at the end of one half term for the following half term, and how I could build I could put an extra row into that spreadsheet that pulls out, you know, so I've got something, because at the moment we hardly post at all, so I've got something each week at least. Something I was wondering though is, should I be posting something different on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter? Is there, or is it all right to post the same thing on all three?
It's absolutely fine to post the same on all three, because different people might be following you on different platforms, and you want to make sure they're seeing everything. I think if you get really into it, you could tailor it slightly for different audiences, depending on different people will be on those platforms. But for the sake of, you know, like you say, you're not posting much at the moment, absolutely fine to post the same thing on all three.
Great. And then so I've got one teacher that is really into Twitter, so she does loads of posting to our Twitter, but I need to sort of rein her in a bit. That's a bit quite tricky, isn't it? Because I sort of want to encourage the other staff, but also we'll need to sort of, if I'm going to make it a bit more organized, then she just won't be able to just randomly pick her up her iPad and post to Twitter each day or whatever. So she's really good at posting the curriculum stuff, and we're pretty good at doing the extracurricular stuff, but it's the student and staff success as well that's the other area we need to work on. That's a really good idea. And we have a celebration assembly on a Friday that we could definitely do. That would be quite an easy thing to do a post after.
Yeah, no, that kind of thing. So those things that particularly already exist, like assemblies where you've got, you know, you might celebrate people for attendance or anything like that. It's a really easy way to just get a post ticked off if you just take a picture afterwards and that kind of thing. So
the other thing that I'm still in the process of doing is, and I mean, this might be completely menial to everybody else, but everything keeps being blocked, and as much as I say, can you unblock Facebook, can you unblock it, then it's unblocked for a bit, and then our filters all come back in and it starts being blocked again, so then that sets me back again. And like, I need it unblocked to the iPads, which is a bit of a problem, because if it's unblocked to some iPads, you know, the way it's managed is quite tricky. So so that's another stumbling block really, that I don't know whether other people are facing as well, but that's certainly limiting.
There's quite a few people nodding there, so we'll pick that up. No, not just you, and I'm sure we'll pick that up, Lewis, Sarah and me. So Martina, can you speak? I know you're with on the call with Libby. Can you speak? I'm just trying to make sure everyone gets a chance to say something.
Oh yeah, she's just having to do something urgently at the moment.
Oh, no worries. Do you want to update again? Thank you.
I can fill in. Okay, so what I do is I have sort of regular meetings with the head, and we sort of talk about all the things that are coming up, things that have happened. I sort of tie it into my newsletter, because we do a weekly newsletter, so there's always so many things that go in that within that I can sort of pick things out and say, actually, that's a good thing to actually tweet, put on Facebook.
Yeah.
And also talking to our school achievement leaders. So I've just been around just now to say, okay, are we doing? So remembering what you do kind of year on year, the standard things like our Christmas boxes. So I've just been around saying, are we doing them again this year? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Okay, right, we're going to have to start thinking about that. Things like that. And then also just forming those relationships with us. I know it's more difficult when you haven't got somebody designated to doing as their job as social media and marketing and everything else. And I also do the daily bulletin, and within the daily bulletin, which goes to each form group, you can see things that are coming up as well. So you get to learn from that way too, and just getting the staff on board that actually we are here to promote all our really good things that we're doing. Can you please keep me in the loop? And it's getting through. People will now come to me and say, right, I've got so-and-so coming up. Can you come and just take a picture, do whatever? And it's just forming and having the time, really. I think the time is a big thing to get and to slot it in. But if that is your job, then it's great. But if it's not and it's another thing, it can then become
so
quite
difficult.
challenging.
And I think that's why having this kind of having those networks and having this plan and this schedule can really help to make it just feel a little bit more manageable. It is obviously still a lot of time involved, but it just helps to make it at least structured time, if that makes sense, doesn't it? And it feels like it's useful when it starts to pay off. So yeah, thank you, that's really helpful. Michelle, I didn't know if you had anything to add. I know you see it from a slightly different perspective from Anglian Leisure, but
yeah, no problem. So obviously mine's from Anglian Leisure rather from the schools directly. But yeah, so mine would be to promote any events that we've got upcoming and any offers, celebrate staff or customers' successes and achievements, like you said before, about kind of runs and events, that type of thing. Looking at any new activities, facilities, potentially looking at some activities which aren't as busy at the moment, so trying to gain interest in those. Again, for recruitment, like you said before, looking at national days and awareness days, new staff introductions, and something we've just started doing is kind of looking at behind the scenes. So there was a post on the Sawston platforms this week about lifeguard training. So it just kind of shows customers actually what goes on behind the scenes. So what we need to do to get to the stage where we can actually open a swimming pool, for example.
Perfect.
So we have monthly social media champion meetings, and that's with myself and then one person from each of the centres. So just to discuss ideas, any upcoming awareness days or anything like that, and just kind of share ideas on what we can post. And then I have 2 weekly managers meetings as well with each of the managers from the different centres. And again, just to discuss any ideas of any staff training that's coming up, any events, any offers, just so that we can kind of promote for the individual centres, but then across the overarching Anglian Leisure sites as well.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Sounds like you've got a good schedule there, so keep up with that, and hopefully all of those networks will sort of bear lots of good content for you
Thank you.
over time. Right, I'm going to hand over to Chloe now, who's going to talk to us about analytics.
Right, so now that you've got an idea of what might be manageable for you and understand how you can use the algorithm, you can use analytics as a way to check just how well the algorithm is working for your so as we said previously, the algorithm changes all. So even if something is working particularly well, it might not work well for you. We also know this is a lot to pack in and don't expect you to be checking around this time. But perhaps setting a reminder to do a quick check towards the end or the beginning of each term will help you kind of track progress and see if you're using a particular algorithm has helped engagement with your posts. And oh, sorry, I think Sarah's interested.
Yeah, if you just hold your mic up,
I'll hold it. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so we were just saying, so if you did a quick check towards the end or beginning of each term, it will help you track progress and see if using a particular algorithm has helped kind of increase your engagement with your posts. And if not, then do you need to kind of change the way that you're posting to a different method that will suit your community? So when it comes to doing these posts or doing these quick half-termly checks, there are just kind of like a few things that we would recommend you think about and make a note of each time you do them to monitor progress. So each half term, it would be ideal if you're able to think about and track which posts have kind of gotten the most engagement, which have gotten the least engagement, and if so, kind of why you think that would be. If your followers have increased or decreased since last half term, and to kind of also compare yourself to other schools. So we'd say actually doing this is a really good idea, because not only can you kind of see what you like and don't like about a different school's social media. So for example, if you're regularly checking, maybe if you're a primary school and you're looking at another primary school in the same community, you can use them to see what you don't like and like about their own social media, anything that you could be doing to improve your own, and also just kind of getting inspiration from them as well. So there might be some really nice things that they're doing that you don't do. Or also at the same time, you might find that you're actually a lot better than them and think, actually, no, I'm doing a really good job compared to my own community. So it's actually quite good to just keep an eye out on other schools and see what they're doing. So when you're doing these kind of half-termly checks, there are three main things or metrics that analytics will tell you and would be good to keep a track of. So I'm sure a lot of you might already know or have heard of these terms, but just in case you haven't, the first one is engagement. So this is the number of interactions your content has received from users. So engagement includes all things like likes, comments, shares, saves, etc. This is probably one of the most important of the three metrics, because having someone simply see your content is just one thing, but if you're getting them involved and people are commenting on your posts, such as parents and local community, it's actually moving them to kind of take action, and it's getting more people to see the post. So it gives you a really good idea of how many people are enjoying that post. The next one is impressions. So this kind of measures how many times a post was displayed, no matter if it was clicked or not. And the last one is reach. This is the number of people who have seen your content. So a good way to kind of remember this is that a piece of content must be delivered to a feed, which is the impressions, and then a user kind of has to interact with the platform to actually see the piece of content in their feed, which is the reach. So these kind of make up your forms of analytics. These are important to monitor, as it's a good way of social media listening and being able to hear and like learn from your audience. So the goal is kind of to uncover what your audience love, hate, and kind of love to hate as well. So for example, we find a lot of parents, as Sam previously said, a lot of parents might not like operational posts too often. And it kind of gives the opportunity for kind of negative comments to occur. So you'll be able to then see this from your analytics and see that from your engagement where you've received, you might have a lot of comments. It might show that the engagement is high, and it will say, oh, you've actually received a lot of comments. But if it's an operational post, you might notice that actually the majority of the comments have kind of been negative, and you might not have gotten many likes. This will then tell you kind of to reduce how many of this type of content you're posting. So it doesn't just have to be operational, it might be a certain type of post that they just don't like or agree with, and you can see that from how many likes it's received. Whereas some parents might absolutely love, for example, kind of like a star of the week post, and you'll see that through both a high amount of likes, reach, and comments, and that will indicate to you that parents love to see this type of content, and then that means you should then just be doing it more often. So I'm just going to kind of go through each of the social media platforms, how to get their analytics. So they're all quite similar to each other, and they all show you kind of the same thing, but we'll just go through each one of them quite quickly. So for Facebook, if you go on your main profile page, there's a button here that's called Insights. So you just want to click on the Insights, and that's when it will take you to a page overview. So from here, you can then see, sorry, my screen's got a bit blurry. So from the page overview, you just can see where really quickly you can see kind of your total post reach, your post engagement, new page likes, and new followers. If you want to go into more detail, you can go and see details. And this is where it will then give you kind of can you see this, Sam? Is it switching between slides?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, sorry, it's just gone blurry on mine. That's fine. So yeah, so you can just go on See Insights and then you can kind of see individual posts. So for example, for this particular post, it will tell us that this is the amount of impressions it got, this is the amount of reach, and this is the engagement. And these are kind of the things that you want to be looking at each half term, kind of jotting down, making a list and tracking, and just seeing if it's been increased or decreased and why that is. The thing about Facebook is that it kind of only gives you, I think it goes up to 90 days. So if you want to look at an overview of kind of all your posts, it only goes up to 90 days. This is why we say to always be making kind of a note on by yourself. So maybe just kind of having a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet where you can keep track of all your different social media platforms such as Facebook.
Or just
Twitter.
sorry to interrupt you, Chloe. I was just going to say, you could also just screenshot. If you go back to the other slides, you could just screenshot the sort of monthly overview, and then save that, and then you can look through them all each month, for example. So rather than kind of having to put it into, don't bother kind of putting it into an Excel spreadsheet or anything like that unless you really want to. But yeah, just another sort of tip for how to gather that.
Yeah, so so Facebook in particular, I think it's just one of the few that actually only does up to 90 days, but that's why we just say to kind of keep a note of it for yourself. So for example, yeah, using those screenshots. But here, as you can see, it's kind of giving you you can really easily see where your engagement and your reach is just from looking at this, and it's just showing what your top performing posts are. And then there's Twitter as well. So Twitter, a very similar thing as well. If you just go on your main profile page, there's an analytics button on the left-hand side. And from here, you can kind of see, it kind of shows you in a different way. So it gives you a monthly summary. So it will say in October, here is your top tweet and your top mention. And then it will also give you some statistics at the top. So it will say whether your engagement has decreased or your followers have increased, little things like that. And it really helps being able to compare. So this is a really easy way. So just as an example here, you can see this is an August one and a September one. So as you can see where things have gone up and where things have gone down, and it will also tell you how many tweets you've done in a particular month. So for example, in kind of August, we only did 3, and we did 3, and then in September we did 1. So it will tell you if you need to be posting more, and if your engagement has gone up because you're posting more or not. And this is just the next one. So this is LinkedIn. So I know a lot of you kind of don't use LinkedIn or have school LinkedIns yourselves. You might have personal profiles. We've just included this just in case you do or want to think about it, as LinkedIn actually gives you quite a lot of different stuff. So if you click on analytics on LinkedIn, there's loads of different things you can look at, such as visitors, followers. You can even look at competitors as well. So I just clicked on content, for example, and here it gives you kind of a highlights page. So you can click the month, you can choose which month that you want to look at, and it will tell you, it will show a graph of kind of what has been the most successful. So as you can see, I've clicked on impressions. Obviously, there's loads of different things you can click on, and it will say in October, this is where it's peaked, and this is where we've gotten the highest amount of impressions. So from that, you can kind of see what post has gotten the most impressions. You can click and see, you can go on a different one that says reactions or something like that. And you can really easily tell what is getting that most engagement and like. We didn't do Instagram as well. So for Instagram, it works a bit differently. I know a lot of you might have Instagram or some might not, but if you have a personal profile on Instagram, it doesn't allow you to look at your analytics. You have to have a business profile to do that. So if you guys need any help with kind of either switching your school account to a business profile, or if you want to know how analytics, we're happy to kind of look at that afterwards with you if you just wanted to either drop us a message or contact Sarah or Lewis. But we didn't think it was worth showing at the minute, as you need a business profile to look at it, but we're not sure that.
Yeah, it's quite a complicated process, and we didn't have much time. But do contact us if you do need an explanation on that, because we can do that separately.
Cool. So that's the majority of it. That's pretty much how you kind of look at analytics. It is very simple and easy to use. As we say, there is like a lot of different things you can be looking at, and do feel free to look at it if you want to and go into more depth. But we would just kind of recommend using only engagement, reach, and impressions to kind of measure how well your social media in general is doing and performance as a whole. there is a lot of stuff, but you probably don't need it, especially for a school. We know, like we said, you're very limited on time, and you don't need to be looking at it all the time, but just doing those kind of half-termly checks would kind of benefit you as well. It also ties in really perfectly with the algorithm of just seeing what works well for your school and what doesn't. An algorithm tends to be that it does change all the time as well. So what we say now, it could have changed like the next day. It is really hard to say what the algorithm is going to be like in the future. So it's just good to, analytics really work well with that, because it shows that if you were using a particular algorithm and then your posts haven't been performing as well as they previously were, then maybe there's something going wrong and you might want to change it up a little bit. Like for example, sometimes we find that when people are posting really often, there's initially like a good engagement, good amount of likes if they're doing those 3 consistent posts a week. And then, for example, it then just might be quiet for a bit and your engagement might drop. And that might be to do with posting the same types of content every week, or that, you know, parents might get bored of them or things like that. And you just know that maybe you need to kind of change it up. If you haven't done maths, for example, that week, you might then want to say, oh, okay, I need to start posting more of maths, or I need to start posting more of art. So it's just a really good idea of checking the algorithm, seeing what's working. Cool. So I think this is kind of the main thing. That's what we had so far. So we just wanted to set some homework as well, and hopefully that you take some good things. So we would just kind of say to we'd like you all to kind of review your analytics using the information that we've given you. So like we said, the reach, the impressions, the engagement, and we just wanted you to kind of share your most successful posts and one thing that you're going to do more and one thing that you're going to do less of after looking at. This is completely what depends on you and your school.
Chloe, I'll just jump in a sec because your mic's cutting out again, so don't worry. I'll so yeah, sorry, Chloe's laptop is playing up. We need to get her a new one. That's a separate issue. So in terms of reviewing, so we just want you to go away and have a bit of a think about reviewing your analytics, share your most successful post, one thing you're going to do more of and one thing you're going to do less of after looking at them, and send them to me and Chloe before the next session. It's just really, it's just as Chloe said, it's not about going through it in any great detail, but just to get a really good sense of the things that stand out the most and to you, and things that you can learn from that. It's just another way that you can make get the most from the work that you're doing, really. I think that's it from today's session. Chloe, you've still got control. Hold on, let me take it back. So we're not going to do takeaways because we're sort of running out of time, but thank you very much for everybody for your time today, and hopefully you can take the outline of the strategy that we've kind of gone through today and flesh that out a bit. And I would just recommend having a simple Word document that has those things there. So what are you trying to achieve? How often are you going to post? What kind of things are you going to be posting? And that kind of those are your core kind of things to stick by. Also great if you want to share it, if there's multiple of you working on that, great thing to have just to be able to share with one another and to be able to work from there. Hopefully you'll all be able to join us for the next session on the 7th of December, which will also be over Teams, about trust best practice for social media. And otherwise you're free to go unless you have any questions. Me and Chloe will kind of hang on for a few minutes if anyone has any questions. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks all. See you soon.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.